drummingforlife.com.
Hey there, it's Vaughn at drummingforlife.com. Aloha. Hope you're doing well. Today I want to share with you the kind of drum head I really recommend you get and use when you're playing brushes. Even if you're just practicing with brushes, I think it's really important to have the right gear. It's going to make a really big difference overall in how you feel when you play brushes. Okay? I go into a lot of detail about this in the Brushes Mastery course, which is at jazzdrumschool.com. And I'm not going to go into all the detail here, but I'm going to cover some really important points that I think will help you in terms of figuring out what's going to be best for you. So if you haven't checked out the Brushes Mastery course yet, I encourage you to check it out. It's really all the students that are enrolled in it from all different parts of the world, which is really awesome, have all given me the same kind of feedback, which is, hey, this is really helping me to improve my brush playing skills, but in addition, it's helping me to learn how to connect my brush playing to the music and to other musicians, which is really the point of why we play, yeah, especially jazz. So I hope you'll check that out. Now let's go ahead and get into this. Before we do, please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and be sure and swish that like button if you like the video, and leave a comment if you like. I always respond to all of my comments, and I'd love to connect with you. So the kind of drum head I recommend is, we'll just give a little overhead angle here. You can see that on my drums I have the same kind of drum head on all of my drums, including my practice pad over here. Now with the drum head, there are a couple of different options that I think work okay for brushes. One is a coated head, which is a kind of sprayed on coating, and the other one is this one. This is a kind of fibrous coating. This is called a Remo fiber skin head. They have different thicknesses, like for instance this is an Ambassador, which is a little bit thicker mylar. This is a Diplomat, which is a little bit thinner. This is also an Ambassador over here. So there are different kinds of thickness, but they're all kind of imitating that same sound, which is that old style calfskin sound. And I also used to play calfskin heads for a short time, back in the 90s, I think. I thought I would give it a try. But the thing that's so awesome about these is they give you this smooth and wonderful sound, just like a calf head. But you don't have to worry about the constant tuning issues. So for instance, when I would go to a gig, I would set up and I would put I'd have to, constantly kind of work with the tuning depending on if the room was getting hot or cold, or if it was humid or dry. So because it's actually the skin of an animal, so it would really respond to the environment and temperature and humidity, which is a little bit of a challenge, when you're playing, and takes your mind off of the music and kind of focusing on tuning. The other thing that was I didn't like so much was after every gig I had to detune it, because you don't want to overstretch it. So for me it didn't work so good. There are a lot of drummers out there probably that love using them, and I think that's great. I think if it works for you, that's wonderful. For me it doesn't work, and I like the options we have now with these kinds of mylar heads, because we don't have to deal with all that tuning stuff, and we can really focus on playing. So I really encourage you to check it out. Remo has one, has their fiber skin line, and Evans also has their calf tone drum heads, and those are really great too. I don't endorse any particular company, but I just think I'm just sharing with you what I use, and I think that I think they both make pretty good heads. Now, one thing that is interesting is if you're going to do a lot of heavy playing, okay, and using sticks, for instance, and playing heavy with these drum heads, they're not going to hold up as good, and they're going to start to kind of peel off. The kind of fiber, the material will start to kind of peel off, and I think that you probably want to, if you're really going to use them for jazz playing and a lot of brush playing, it's perfect. If you really want to play something harder or heavier, I encourage you to get a coated head instead, because you're not going to be dealing with this kind of peeling issue. Now, what happens when it peels is that then your brush can get caught in the areas where it's kind of where there's a little bit of an imperfection, or there's a little bit of a kind of peeling happening. So what you really want to do, if you're in that kind of situation, a couple of things I've found that maybe might work good for you is you could go out and buy a new drum head, and they're not that expensive, depending on where you are in the world. I know some places it might be more expensive, but in America or where I am in Japan, they're not so expensive. So a couple things that help. If you get that kind of, if something happens, if you're on a gig or you're in a recording session and suddenly it peels up a little bit and then your brush is getting caught in it, you may want to just spin the drum, okay? And then you won't be actually hitting it at the same angle where your brushes are getting stuck. Other thing you can do is take some really fine, coarse sandpaper and maybe just try to sand out that one little spot. Those two things might work really good for you. They worked good for me, and I think that'll kind of help you kind of fix it, kind of a quick fix if you're in the middle of a playing situation. So I really recommend these. The coated heads are great, but they have a coarser sound. They don't sound as smooth. They don't respond as well to the brushes. And I really recommend that you get something that it really responds well. For instance, there's this flutter stroke, okay? This is really the telltale for me. The flutter stroke is this kind of thing right here, okay? If I'm going to do this, it's a very fine motor oriented skill. Brushes are all fine motor, right? So that's one of the reasons a lot of drummers are going to stay away from brushes, because it's so fine motor oriented. But this is the real telltale for me. If I can do this and it's effortless, then that's a good head. If I try to do that on a coated head, even if I sand it lightly in the beginning to kind of get most of that really abrasive coarseness off, it's still harder to do this kind of motion because of the friction involved between the coating and the brush. Okay, you don't have that same friction here when you're dealing with a fiber skin head. And that's one of the really nice things, and that's why it really is so similar to a calf skin head. So I really encourage you to kind of try different heads, see what works for you. And I think you're going to find that for brush playing that the fiber skin style head, the calf tone head from Evans, whatever, those are going to probably work the best. Now, just a quick note about the thickness of the head. When you have an ambassador, it's a little bit thicker, okay, and which is a more durable head. I like an ambassador on my snare drum, and I like an ambassador on my floor tom, because I like to play samba stuff with my right hand on the floor tom, and it's not as, the overtones aren't as strong. It's easier to contain and control in tuning. So I like the ambassador for that reason, and actually just for any ordinary drum fill I'm doing. I just think it works a lot better. It records better, I think, and it sounds better in a live situation as well. The rack tom, I like to use a thinner one because I like a more responsive sound. I really want that drum to sing. And so I use the Diplomat, which is just a little thinner mylar, and I think you're going to find it has a nice resonance to it and really pulls out the sound of your drum and really lets it sing. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I can also show you on my bass drum, I actually have the Evans calf tone head down here. I just tend to like the way it sounds. and it's just a personal preference. So it just depends on whatever works for you. I encourage you to experiment and see what you like and go with that. All right. So again, want that smooth sound, nice smooth texture. Okay. And if you can do this, you're doing good. Got the right head. All right? So I hope that helps. And as I always say, keep on drumming. Take care. A couple more things I want to share with you. I've got lots of stuff here that I've created for you to support your drumming. I've got a blog. I've been putting up new blog posts this past week, all focused on helping you become the best drummer you can be, especially in the world of jazz. I've got private Zoom drum lessons that you can book, and I use all these different camera angles as well. You can book those at vonbarenstore.com, which is also the place you can get a lot of great drum backing tracks, so drum practice tracks, so you can actually practice all the things that you're learning in my videos. Or the course, the Brushes Mastery course, actually comes with 20 different drumless tracks, drum practice tracks as a part of the course. And but there's so many more. I have like over 220 at the vonbarenstore.com. So I encourage you to go check that out. It's really some nice stuff over there. The jazzdrumschool.com is really popping, doing great. We got the Brushes Mastery course there, and soon I'm going to have other courses as well, using sticks and playing other things related to jazz. So hope you'll go check that out. All right, so thanks again for watching, and as I always say, keep on drumming. Take care.
Drummingforlife.com